We are live on a Friday night, and I am very excited for this addition to our series of Back-Trekking Retrospectives, where we take a look at some of the older episodes of Star Trek. And I have Joel and Taylor here with me, and we're talking about the trippy, the what I call like the most heavy metal episode of Star Trek ever, but a personal favorite of mine from the animated series, the Magicks of Megas-tu. So I think we can go ahead and get the show started. I'm Fatheree.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Miss Taylor.
And for our YouTube audience, you're not going to see Miss Taylor, but you will hear her. But she's kind of lost her physical integrity. So she's a voice from the void, but it works for this episode. But this, or I should say for the podcast, because the way that I'll edit this later, and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 322nd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are talking about Star Trek the Animated Series, Season 1, Episode 8, The Magicks of Megas-tu. This episode written by Larry Brody, directed by Hal Sutherland. This is our latest Back-Trekking Retrospective, where we take our deep dive discussion format we developed for discussing new episodes of new Star Trek shows, but we're just going to apply that to an older episode of a legacy show. I'm really excited to talk about this one, The Magicks of Megas-tu. It's a weird episode. I know a lot of people actually hate it, but I've also found other people who do love it as much as I do. But it is a huge personal favorite of mine as a hardcore metalhead. I love heavy metal music, and I think this episode with the trippy fantasy stuff, with the psychedelic stuff, and with the satanic stuff, it is just surprising and shocking to me how metal this episode of Star Trek is.
It really is. And it was released on, the originally aired October 27, 73. So it's really a Halloween one too.
Oh, that's a great point. I didn't think of that, but yeah.
I mean, it's not the most Halloween. It's got, metal devil stuff, but it was released right before Halloween. So I think they put that there on purpose.
Well, it's funny you say that, Joel, because just earlier today I was thinking what would be some less obvious Halloween-themed episodes of Star Trek, because my brain goes to weird places like that, but still Star Trek-related when I'm idling for too long, I guess. And so I was like, this would Magicks of Megas-tu would actually work for something to watch in October if you're looking for Halloween or Halloween-adjacent Trek. So... but yeah, these backtracking retrospectives so far have been a lot of fun. I just want to encourage people, if there are specific episodes you want us to cover, let us know. We have a few that we know we're going to get to, but we're going to try to do a lot of these as long as people are continuing to listen or watch when we talk about them. I just want to let people know that we have a different episode from a different show in mind for next week. And I see Aaron is in the live audience right now. We will actually have him on the show next week, but not for the animated series, for a different show. I don't want to say what it is yet, what episode it is. We will announce at the end of the show. But it's a show that we haven't done a backtracking retrospective for. So not TOS, TNG, or TAS, but yeah, I feel like it would be fun to talk about the animated series with Aaron, as he is, the expert who wrote the book on it. But I think we've talked a lot with him about the animated series. I want to talk to him about another show specifically. So we're going to get into that next week. But Aaron, glad that you're here in the live audience right now. And I am so excited that Taylor and Joel are also fans of this episode. And I'm dying to hear their thoughts on it. Just some quick housekeeping before we get started. We have to give a big thank you and shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters. We could not do the weekly live show without y'all. Thank you so very much. Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Dot, Geek Filter, Quarkspar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Benjinium, Arthur Lamoureux, our associate producer, Chris Garris, Dave Farabee, Dave A. Gregory, Ulysses the Pagan, and our anonymous supporters. If you are watching this live on Friday, I want to remind you that tomorrow, March 22nd, at 3:30 p.m. Saturday afternoon, Central Time, we are going to be enjoying more animated Star Trek. We have our Patreon watch party scheduled, and it's going to be an animated double feature. All of the patrons are invited to come watch the animated series as The Eye of the Beholder with us, and that will be followed by the Prodigy episode, Let Sleeping Borg Lie.
Spooky Borg. Continuing the Halloween theme.
That's a great example of a scary episode of Star Trek.
It is, yeah. I planned this on purpose. I did not.
But it did line up pretty well. This became kind of an animated week.
There's a theme, yeah.
And if you're listening to this later, if March 22nd has already come and gone, don't worry about it. We do one of those every month. You can join the Patreon at any tier to get into those watch parties. Come in as little as $2 a month. If you can afford to be more generous, there are some additional perks as well. So please check that out if you're able to support. It does mean a lot to us. And I also want to remind people that, in addition to hanging out with us in our watch parties, you can also hang out with us in person. Taylor and I will be at the Trek Long Island convention. That's going to be the last weekend of May. So it'll be my first time in New York. I'm really looking forward to getting up there, though, and meeting some Trekkies that are there. Maybe people in the Northeast who, they don't get out to Vegas. I don't see them over there at that convention, but, maybe I can run into them there. So that's very exciting to me. And we're also going to drive up to Ticonderoga and see those TOS sets.
Nice. Jealous.
Well, we'll take plenty of pictures, so it'll be like you're there with us.
Yeah, but you have to really do that. I always say that about STLV, and then I don't. I take more than the year before, but
I'll keep him on track.
Yeah, Taylor will force me to take pictures.
I'm always and get a video, and a photo, and another video, and also a selfie.
Yeah,
good idea.
People who want to look at our pictures, I should say that I'm in this very cool Star Trek room that's our studio now that I need to post some pictures and show it off. So we have a really cool Star Trek room set up in our house. We call it Astrometrics. So I feel like I work in Astrometrics, like 7 of 9. It's pretty cool. So
good job. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep an eye on the socials or join the Tex-Trek Discord server and you can check that out. Magicks of Megas-tu. So, also known as the Devil episode of the animated series. I'm going to quickly recap it in case some of y'all haven't seen it in a while. It did come out 50 plus years ago, so but we'll get into the episode breakdown in a moment where we will go through the story beat by beat. But just to quickly recap it for everyone. The synopsis I grabbed off of Memory Alpha says, at the center of the galaxy, the Enterprise discovers a race of powerful aliens. That's all it says, just like that one sentence.
That happens a lot, so this doesn't narrow it down.
But yeah, so the center of the galaxy is a little different than Star Trek V, but we might talk about that later. But here we see the center of the galaxy, the creation point of the galaxy, and where there's a big cosmic storm that sweeps the Enterprise off, and then we enter another universe where the laws of physics don't quite apply the way that we think they would. But a goat man appears and says his name is Lucian. He says he loves humans. Turns out that he's a member of the Megan race. They used to hang out on Earth and do what we perceived as magic until they were literally burnt at the stake for it. So they fled back to Megas-tu, and humanity is put on trial, something that Gene Roddenberry loves to do. You know, Squire
There's
of Gothos.
a lot of things Roddenberry loves in this
Yeah,
movie.
Encounter at Farpoint. Yeah, you meet God. You put humanity on trial. Yeah, a lot of recurring themes in this episode. As unique as it is, that's the crazy thing about this, Joel. This is an incredibly unique episode, but yet it is so like truly Star Trek. Like there's so much Star Trek in it. So many like recurring themes and tropes.
It's so weird and not like a regular episode. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is. They're on the ship and they lose power. That kind of stuff happens. But yeah, it's Star Trek, but weird. And then there's that one shot where they're traveling through a red spiral and there's like food around them. I don't know what that shot is. Does anyone know?
Yeah, like yellow saucers flying around or something.
Calzones maybe, or pies. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Eventually, they do get through all the psychedelic encounters, though, and make peace with the Megans and prove to them that humanity has evolved and improved since the 1600s. And Kirk makes a friend with Lucian. So, I'll go ahead and give like the first opening statement, and then Joel, I'm going to ask you what you think about this episode, just broad impressions before we get into the specifics. But like I said, I always call this episode the most metal episode of Star Trek ever, but I love kind of like that early 70s vibes. You know, this is very like Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin type albums at the time. I'm wondering if like Larry Brody was listening to any of that, but I like the story. There's some problems with, whenever you depict like the Salem witch trials as, oh, there were actually like witches involved, and that wasn't just like paranoid humans and victimizing a lot of like innocent people, mainly like innocent women and stuff like that. But the reason why I can kind of forgive it in this episode is because the point of the episode is that like that persecution and that kind of blind bias and bigotry is wrong, and it does tell a story that's kind of anti-isolation. It tells an interesting story that like the devil, or this guy who is perceived to be the devil, is real, but he's an all right guy. Don't blame him. Don't fear the boogeyman, like the scapegoat. There's people in power now who look for a scapegoat. Currently, it seems to be like, oh, all your problems are because of like immigrants and queer people, and there's been other scapegoats in the past. In the 1930s Germany, it was the Jewish people were doing it, but. This episode is like, oh, don't fear the boogeyman. Like, actually, like judge someone like based on. I guess like the MLK thing, like on like their character, on like their action, and not what you've been conditioned to think of them, and give people like their fair shot, and not close yourself off just to feel safe. It's good to reach out and explore and mingle and find those that are different from you. It's very like infinite diversity and infinite combinations in a lot of ways. So yeah, I like it. I love the trippiness of it. And just the absurdity of it. I love when Star Trek can go absurd. I think that is a tradition. Having the TNG crew reenact Robin Hood for Q, like that is absurd. That's bonkers. What other TV show in the 80s and 90s was doing that? Like the TOS. Like, oh, we're gonna do a gunfight at the OK Corral. Like, yeah, I love the absurdity in Star Trek. It works. Sometimes Dr. McCoy is gonna see Alice chasing the White Rabbit, and we're gonna do weird. Unpredicted, absurd stuff, the audacious stuff. So, but I'll shut up. Joel, tell us what's your take on the Magic of Megas-tu?
Yeah, I really love this one. It is kind of weird as a Trek episode, but it fits really well into what was going on in the 70s, I think, really well. Because, I mean, just a few years later, we have Nimoy does In Search Of. I think that was later. Which has, this kind of weirdness and, some kind of witches and all that kind of stuff. And It was just sort of permeating the culture. And I know Brody actually tried to pitch this for the series.
Right.
I think in year it was in year 2. It would have been year 3, I think, but he got turned down for that because it probably would have been impossible budgetary for obvious reasons. But so it's a thing in the late 60s and 70s that, you know, they're going to have magic and all this stuff. And then it strangely works so well in this Trek episode, which on paper, yeah, it shouldn't, but it really does. And it's fun in a really weird way because we have so many godlike aliens, but most of them are. Q is fun and interesting, but not super fun because he's also, you know, introducing you to the Borg, which maybe was humanity's best, but you're sort of mad at him a lot. And so it's a different take than having a godlike drinking buddy is just, you know, not usual Trek, not your usual godlike entity. And yeah, it's a very odd but very good time. So how about you, Miss Taylor?
Well, I remember watching this one for the first time, and I was just very surprised by like every scene was like so random. Like watching it for the first time, it kind of felt like a little whiplashy, but it was also entertaining and fun. It was definitely like extremely memorable. And that was why I was really excited to talk about this one as one of the first TAS episodes that we were covering and backtracking. But yeah, I thought, you know,
Yeah, Taylor picked this one. I didn't twist anyone's arm to get this in here. This was another one that she picked. I did pick next week's episode that we'll announce later, but
I know I don't know how I ended up getting to pick the first 3, but it's been really fun for me.
No pressure.
In this episode, I really love Spock a lot. I think he really shines in this episode, and I was really impressed by like a lot of his logic and kind of. I remember thinking when I watched it, and even this week watching it again, that Sherlock quote, "When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." And I feel like this entire episode kind of pulls into that again, and with Spock. So I do have some things like that I'm not super loving about it, like the witch trial stuff. Like Stephen already brought that up. And I have some hard times whenever we bring like real life situations into the sci-fi stuff and they're like put back into those situations. Sometimes it's harder for me to swallow. But
it was aliens.
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
meme of that guy with his hands up. It was aliens.
But I actually really enjoy it in this because it's just so absurd and so wild and different. And I love like the humanity on trial trope again. It was just so fun. So this didn't bother me like as much as I think it was Omega Glory that they do that in TOS, and that was really hard for me. Where it's kind of like using like American nationalism and stuff. So this one was a little more
Yangs
fun.
And the Yangs and the Khans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like this much more than the Omega Glory.
Yes.
I think that's a unanimous vote.
But yeah, we can go ahead and get into our episode breakdown in one moment. I just want to point out in the live audience, Aaron is letting us know that Larry Brody had the Aleister Crowley books. So yeah, I think he's very much on the wavelength I suspected. And I should say he went on to be the showrunner on another animated sci-fi show. In the late 90s, Marvel made an animated Silver Surfer show. That I watched at the time and thought it was really cool. It's kind of it's on Disney Plus now, but it's kind of gotten repopular recently because Fox did these promos where they had the Silver Surfer hanging out with Hank Hill from King of the Hill, because both those shows were coming out on Fox in like 1997, 1998, whenever this was. And I see people like circulate that. But yeah, if you've ever seen the late 90s animated Silver Surfer show that has all kinds of like weird outer space cosmic visuals in it, you know, very Jack Kirby like the comics, but that was also Larry Brody. So he seems like a cool dude, or very much like someone I would get along with. And also in the live audience, Cake is Eternal is asking us Lucian or Lucian. The name is pronounced both ways, our demonic goat man character here. But he does say it Lucian. So
yes. TAS pronounces something more than one way. Wow.
But Joel, you know what's crazy about that? Is because like, yeah, Nimoy says it a different way, and you would
Yeah.
think that would be because they must have recorded separately, like they typically did on the animated series. But and I think I was reminded of this in Aaron's book. But this was one of the few episodes where they actually had the cast together for the recording, and writer Larry Brody got to go and meet Shatner and Nimoy when they were recording. So I don't know why Nimoy still said it. Maybe he just said it like that and no one corrected him, or
Or
I don't
they're
know what
just
happened. But
going so fast that they
yeah,
weren't
no
going to
one
do
noticed.
retakes. Or they noticed, but they weren't going to do
They asked him
retakes.
to do it
Yeah.
again. And he said,
Yeah.
"No, I got a play to do in New York. I'm out of here. Like I got to go catch my flight. Bye."
I'm here for lunch. Yeah.
But yeah, whatever the case. Uh, but we can go ahead and get into our episode breakdown, where we will go through the entire story, basically beat by beat. Starting with the opening of the episode, they are on a journey to the center of the galaxy, hoping to explore the creation point where Federation scientists believe the galaxy was created. It's kind of like a confusion of like the Big Bang, of like the whole universe came from one
Yeah.
central point. This is kind of like that. Sometimes people get galaxy and universe confused, but this is basically like
For sure.
like the galaxy expanded from this one point where it's believed like matter was created, and that if a ship went there, they could see matter and energy being created. So that's what the Enterprise is on a mission to do. I have some ideas of how this can also fit with Star Trek V, which I think was just ignoring this episode when Star Trek V was made. But I think we can actually just assume that the Great Barrier that Cybok wanted to go through to find Shakari. Interesting that like he was trying to find God, and here we're meeting the devil, but maybe the Great Barrier and this creation point, they're both really close to the center of the galaxy, but neither one is like the exact center. That's kind of become like my headcanon. Because when they're approaching in this episode, Sulu says something like "Galaxy Center, Captain," but like, okay, does that mean like the actual like center of the galaxy, or does that just mean like the 50,000 light year radius from the center of the galaxy? Like, I don't know. There's also like the debate on like how can these ships go that far if it takes Voyager 70 years to get back from the Delta Quadrant. How can you go halfway across the galaxy to get to the center so quickly? But apparently you can do it in Magicks of Megas-tu. You can do it in Star Trek V. Don't ask. Maybe there's like a subspace corridor or something, but canonically
it does pull them
happen.
in at the end too, because they start going warp 8,
Right.
9, 10, and then so.
Right, so I think they're just
This
getting like kind
one,
of
yeah.
close. They're like on like the very like Federation outskirts near the center of the galaxy, and then like close enough where they could observe what they were calling the creation point, and that's when they get sucked in by this whirlwind, and it's
Yeah.
Lucian pulling them in.
Yeah, the whole center of the galaxy, there's just a whole godlike being district, and this is just the outskirts of that. So.
But right off the bat, we get some interesting visuals in this episode. So I don't know if you have any like thoughts on the Enterprise riding the whirlwind into the Megas-tu, but
I love all of the crazy colors, and this animation makes me so happy to look at.
It's funny because it's a combo of really new stuff they haven't had before, the psychedelic backgrounds and some of the overlays of color. But then they put like this thing they used in every episode, like those weird fireworks that are in like every filmation thing. So it's a great combo of the stuff they always use for budgetary reasons, and then brand new stuff just for this episode.
And I like that it's like focusing on the red, yellow, and blue, which are like kind of the main colors of Star Trek. Like it really just fits the vibe so well.
It does, yeah.
And if you are looking for some Star Trek to watch while having like a mind altering experience, I think this one is a pretty good one to go with. But it's also fun to have Sulu like counting up like the higher warp factors. That's kind of similar to what the famous part of Star Trek IV when they're doing the warp time travel thing around the sun. But having a George Takei like shout out increasingly higher numbers is a bit dramatic with that cool deep voice that he has. But they come to a reality where the laws of physics don't work, and so it kind of makes sense. Like nothing works. Like their life support systems are down. Their ship cannot function until Lucian reveals himself. So the episode already is kind of kind of a trip when we have like the psychedelic visuals and then the depiction of Lucian. So. But he's a friendly dude. What do y'all think about like James Doohan doing the voice of yet another animated series character? But I think this is like one of his more interesting voice performances.
It's really different from all the rest that he does. Usually you can tell it's him a lot more.
Yeah, I always forget. Like I'm watching this episode and I have to remind myself, oh, that's the same voice as Scotty. George Takei does a voice in this episode.
Yes,
that's like
obvious, yeah.
Obviously Takei. But like the Lucian voice, I always have to remind myself, yeah, that is the same guy who says Borgus Frot, So
Yep. Yeah, it's very Brian Blessed is what it reminds me.
Yeah, kind of like that larger than life, like that.
Yeah,
Gordon's
booming,
alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a terrible impression I just did, but
he's a hard guy to do.
Yeah, that was just shooting from the hip. I didn't practice that or anything, but Lucian he's so excited to see them. You got to think like, oh, the 1600s when we find out the Megans left Earth, that was hundreds of years ago. So he's so excited that it sounds like his favorite species, humans, mankind, like they've made it out there, like they've made it to Megas-tu, and he's what does he say? Humans, lovely primitive humans. Can't you do anything right? Oh yeah, because like their life support systems were failing. So he had to fix that with his magic. But yeah, I mean that's crazy. I saw Aaron of the live audience talking about how it's very similar to Q. Like snapping fingers. Here when he does the Radamanthus thing, he just like raises his hand, almost like a talk to the hand thing. But
there's a lot of characters who do the raise the hand thing with both hands in TAS.
Yeah, I mean, it was an easy thing to draw, and it looked good as like a static image, I guess.
Yeah.
What also shows that they're very welcoming, and like they call that the orator stance in like art history when they have one. It's like a commanding pose, so it shows like their power as well, and like that they're confident.
Yeah, I see that like used. I'm a big comic book reader, and a lot of like comic book artists use that gesture sometimes.
The Vidians do it, and then a lot of people in TS do it.
But you start getting some of the fantasy elements of this episode. Eventually we see like the castles and wizards and stuff. But here when Spock starts talking about this, not being logical, and Lucian says, I said it the wrong way. I said it the Spock way. Lucian says, "Logic, my elfin friend." Or what is it? Logic? Who's logic, my elfin friend? So yeah, it's like there's a different reality, different laws of physics, different logic applies here. I could also see the people who are not on board this episode. They could be like, okay, like they're talking to a goat man. It looks like the cartoony depiction of the devil. This is dumb. I could see why some people might be not on board, but I don't. For me, like this is always exciting stuff.
I thought it was a really fun character design, but it did give a little bit of James McAvoy's character in Chronicles of Narnia, which it comes later. But that like satyr, what's his name? Yeah. Rachel brought it up the other day. Mr. Tumnus, I think.
Oh, I didn't know that he was. I've read that first book a long time ago. I've never seen the movie though, so I didn't know that he was in that.
Yeah. But he kind of looks similar. Has the horns and the goat legs and all that. But
the goat legs.
I think that might be a reason why I actually think that his depiction is like not as scary, because like the first goat man I saw was Mr. Tumnus, and so I'm like, oh, he's supposed to be nice.
And there's also Pan from Greco-Roman mythology, who is the goat man, and so I think Lucian might have also like inspired those myths as well.
Yeah, because I think the Greeks were the ones who first had the satyrs.
And just based on his personality, you know, like he's excited because like, oh, humans are fun. They like to party. They will rollick with me. That's his thing, right?
Yeah, he's been waiting 600 years, and now they're here to party. So, yeah, good on humans. And their elfin friend, of course.
So yeah, but when he introduces himself, he clearly says, "Call me Lucian." So I don't know why you get it wrong, Spock, but you know, it's kind of like a Orion type thing. But he says, "Call me Lucian, call me friend. Never could I abandon those who come to rollick with me. Let us leave this vessel and go where true delights lie." Like, right, if I saw this dude appear and he said that to me, I'd be like, you know what, bro, I'm down. Let's go. Let's do it. I would toss on some doom metal probably, but no, I did want something more upbeat. But we go to Megas-tu and more trippy psychedelic visuals. We see like Captain Kirk is like a no longer tangible physical entity. He's like this weird squiggly ghost.
Corporeal form.
Yeah, he's like a non-corporeal form.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also interesting that like Lucian immediately knew who the important people on the ship are. Like he takes Kirk,
Yes.
Spock, and McCoy. It's like he knew who the big three of the show were.
He was like, "You three are going to be fun. You guys like to banter."
You radiate main character energy.
He picked up on that. He didn't pick up on like, oh, humans really appreciate their physical integrity. But
Well, it's really hard to keep them that way. He even says so. It's like requires great effort.
and then I don't know why, but like when Kirk asked Lucian to, you know, explain the environment they're in, explain like what's going on. For some reason, Lucian turns into like a little kid. He's like a little kid devil. He just says, "Children will play."
Yeah.
I think that was just shade. It's like that's a childish thing to ask. So I'll become a child with a spinning top.
I think there's a few instances in this episode where at some point there was like extra that was going to be in this that they
Like
didn't
if he would do
more
this
to.
more often, like if he would like turn into different different depictions of himself, here's a good example, Taylor. Let me know if this is what you're thinking of. But you know, like the genie in Aladdin, the Robin Williams genie in the Disney Aladdin movie, how he would kind of, you know, he would like shape shift and stuff to like make his jokes and stuff. Like,
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I was thinking it was more of like a writing thing where they were going to elongate a storyline there and then they just dropped it to make it short and like fit. But yeah, I like that where he's just like adding visuals to his jokes.
You mentioned the writing, and that just reminded me. I want to point this out. And this isn't the only time this happened on the animated series, but Larry Brody says that the final version of this episode follows the plot of the script he turned in, but the dialogue is all different. All of these lines were rewritten by Gene Roddenberry, and I know, yeah, you know, Walter Koenig has said the same thing about the Infinite Vulcan, and I just there's some really interesting scripting in this episode, and sometimes I think like that was an interesting choice, Gene, or like why did you call it that? Like, so I'll try to point some of those out as we go along. But here's like an example when Lucian makes the perception of the world that they're in, the perception of Megas-tu, more comprehensible for humans, which this is all kind of, you know, like trippy psychedelic stuff. But like, oh, you're in like this other realm, like the realm of like the gods or the spirits or wherever. But like your brain, your puny mortal brain can't handle it. So let me change the perception and make it look like you know, something real and physical and familiar, yet still fantastical. But when he's pointing out the love potions that the women use, I guess to court men, but Kurt calls it what does he call it?
A love filter.
Love filter, not love potion, but love filter. Like that was an interesting
PH.
word, Gene.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of actually interesting vocabulary in this episode, and it makes me think about like the animated series being more of like a kid show, I think, is like the target audience, and yet they're throwing in these like really odd, really large words that they may not know. But I think that's such a fun thing to do, and I think that's a great thing to do for kids shows, to like expand vocabulary for kids. And that's like an easy one. It's like, oh, a love filter, and like it's obviously like in the
A
shape of
potion.
like a potion. So they learn that word, you know, and as like a visual and a verbal connection there. And I don't know if that was intentional at all, but I do admire that they put like larger words in here, even though it was targeted more towards kids.
I think filter was used in connotation with like witchcraft and magic as an old kind of word. So I think that's where they get that. I'm not sure if that was Brody's word and Gene just changed it, or Gene threw it in, of course.
But Gene was also excited to do something with magic in his, sci-fi Star Trek show, and compared this to Cat's Paw, the episode of the original series, because he said like, oh yeah, that didn't quite work as well as we wanted because the budget limitations in live action. So here we can get like a lot more crazy with the magic in animation. So a good thing that this episode didn't get made in the original series and ended up being in the animated series. And it's crazy to me that like Larry Brody originally wanted this to be a story of they go to the creation point of the galaxy and they meet God, who would just be like this this voice that spoke with like a flashing thunderous light. And they're like, NBC was like, you can't do that, but you can do the devil instead. So I was like, okay, here's like this story about hanging out with the devil. But like the one, like it's so trippy to me that like they did this. But like when you see Lucien with like the apples, and he's like handing the apples to Kirk and McCoy, or he gives one to McCoy and eats one himself. But he has like these two apples, one in each hand, like offering an apple. And it's like, okay, that is clearly referencing the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, obviously. It's like, here's a biblical allegory for you and one for me.
Yeah, that's really fun. I like in this part where Lucien is, he's like, oh, all of our women are as young and beautiful as they want to be. And then he's like, I think that's so random. Like no one asked like what their women are up to or anything.
And then they need love filters. And
yeah, it was so random.
Consent
like,
is not big in this realm.
Yeah.
They throw people in stocks and do all, and just.
And then and then I loved the scene where it pans after that immediately, and it's like, need a sorcerer contractor, and they like build this glass castle. Like it's so random and so like different, and it just, that part makes me laugh so hard every time because it's such a like juxtaposition. It's like, oh, the women want to like ensnare men, and oh, the men, they just want to build glass castles. Like it's so weird.
You know who would love this though? Harry Mudd.
Oh yeah, Harry Mudd would thrive here.
Yeah. And I do think the women being like, oh, they're all like young and beautiful, so they to stand out they have to like force men to fall in love with them with a magic potion. That ages poorly, as I like to say. But it is, I guess, at the time, it would have been like, oh yeah, this is kind of like a fantasy realm. This is almost kind of like Dungeons and Dragons type territory.
They have the outfits. Yeah, I mean, sort of faux Renaissance gowns. And
yeah.
And I'm convinced that Larry Brody was into some of the same type of music that I like, because the Garden of Eden reference, this would have been just like a few years after the Iron Butterfly song, like in a
Gata Davida.
Yeah, which was derived from In the Garden of Eden.
Yes.
So yeah, he might have been jamming out to some Iron Butterfly when he was coming up with this. But we get some backstory here. We find out that these people, the Megans, the inhabitants of this quote-unquote magical world of Megas-tu, not really magic, just like an alternate universe where the laws of physics are different, where like belief is as powerful as matter or energy. But these people, the Megans, they were the only life forms that lived in this dimension or whatever it is. So they left, they explored, they became nomadic, and we see like these really cool looking like robed dudes that like I don't know, they look like they're like ancient druids on like in front of like this blood red sky, and then we see them like fly through space. Like I love the visuals of that so much.
A Megan road trip. Yep.
But
Flying through space.
uh we eventually learn, you know, like they came to Earth, and but they all can do a different type of magic. Like they're all a specialist except for Lucian. He is the generalist among all the special. But he seems like his specialty is like to have fun, to rollick, as he likes to say.
Yeah, it's like goat legs and partying. That's his specialty.
Yeah, he's like literally a party
But
animal.
he can do everything else too, because there's not a big demand for goat legs, and it's too bad. But
Yeah, he kind of has the jack of all trades trait. Like
And,
being a generalist, like he can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, which he's kind of like Sulu or Chekhov. I always say they're kind of like the generalists.
I feel like during this tour here of Megas-tu, he's kind of showing off all of his general skills. He's like, look, I can like make you corporeal when you were non-corporeal, and I can like show you all of these things, and I can change the forest, and I can fix your ship and all this stuff. Like it's so broad, you know.
I can give you an apple. I can turn into a little kid.
Yeah.
I think the I think the genie from Disney's Aladdin was also an inhabitant of Megas-tu. We can shoehorn that movie into the Star Trek universe if we want.
I think so.
But let's talk about Lucian freaking out and sending them back to the Enterprise. His rollicking is cut short, and I love the animation here. He does like this weird like goat leg jump up in the air, and does like this weird like pose. It's because like he sees the other Megans are going to detect them. He's panicked. He's like, oh no, I have to get you back to the ship.
Yeah, he's like peeping over the trees, kind of just like, oh, they're coming. And
yeah. But just the animation of it is just, it's so fun. Because I think it's unexpected. This whole episode, it's just, it just gets more and more bonkers as you're watching. And then like when you see him leap up to the top of the tree line and start prancing around up there, it's just like so unexpected when you're watching it.
And it's weird too, because like sometimes Filmation, you know, they make running look weird, but they made his goat jump thing look really good.
Yeah,
I guess they spent the time and money. There was a lot of standing in this episode.
And it was probably a fun thing to animate, you know. So.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everyone was fighting over doing the fun Lucian thing.
But yeah, so like they're starting to ask questions, you know, like okay, we're learning some backstory. We're starting to figure out where we are. I think it's, you know, kind of like good structure for the episode too, because it's like that's organically cut short, and you know, like was he good captain, always so curious, you know, like he's like, oh, we got this guy right here to explain everything, but oh no, he panics and sends us back to the Enterprise, so the mystery continues.
I think it was also a little convenient too, because I think he was gonna avoid answering. Like I think he wasn't ready to like tell them, you know. He's like, oh, I'm having so much fun, why do you want to be serious, you know? Like,
that's why he says that, like,
frolic going, and then he's
captain,
like, oh, no.
Good captain, always so curious. Yeah,
right,
he's like,
right.
Oh, why do we have to talk so much? Let's just like go like drink beer in the forest and eat apples.
Yes.
Yeah.
He enjoyed giving the tour too. He's like, look at the wizard, look at the love filter.
Well, I mean, a parallel.
I'd like to see that stuff. That seems like a fun tour to go on.
And I think, you know, he's probably thinking, oh, I got to explore Earth and see all of the Earth things. And like, I want to show Earth people like my planet, you know, like that's kind of like a parallel with what his experience, you know.
And the other Megans too were like, yes, we'll show you what we happen to Earth.
Yeah.
They're not fun.
But the big three are returned to the Enterprise, where the life support is working after Lucian did his magic, but Scotty says everything else is not working. So no weapons. I assume like the engines aren't working either. They're just kind of stuck here. There's a cloudy haze around the planet there above, a Megas-tu. So Lucian is hiding the Enterprise from the other Megans. He doesn't want them to be discovered. So I guess at this point, like, Lucian is like, oh, look, I have like some cool friends here, but I have to keep them hidden from everyone else.
Don't let mom and dad find out you have guests. Yeah.
Yeah, probably not a sustainable plan, but as we see, it doesn't last very long. But Taylor, this is the stuff you were talking about that you always liked so much in this episode. About as soon as they get back to the Enterprise, Spock is like, "Well, I've seen the evidence. I guess magic works here. So let me test it out by I'm gonna draw a pentagram on the floor. I believe this is how the ancients used to draw their mystic symbols, and I'm gonna do some magic." And he does.
Yeah. I love this too because it feels a little bit Spock's like, hold my beer, guys, I got this,
Yeah.
And then, but I also love that he still is logical about it. Like he does an experiment first. He's like, let's see if I can move this little Vulcan chess piece, and like he kind of fails a little bit the first attempt, and then he like really vocalizes his belief, right? And he's like, it is logical here, and then it moves. So I think it's kind of cool. Like we get both sides of Spock there, where he's like super confident that he can do it, but he still does a little science experiment. Like that's so him, before he's like, oh, before I can fix the ship, let me like do something small first, to make sure I can do that.
Yeah, the live audience, Cake is Eternal, is pointing out, well, drawing a pentagram is a bit risky. And yeah, it is crazy to me. The first time I saw this, I was like, wow, I can't believe they got away with this in 1973. Yeah.
Saturday morning, 73, yeah. Even if it is Halloween, oh my God, yeah.
It was probably easier to get away with this on Saturday morning than it would have been on like a primetime show.
Yeah, that's true. But
maybe not as much scrutiny.
But Spock is such a generalist, like Lucian though. As soon as he's like, "Oh, magic is real," he's like, "Well, I got some magic knowledge in my back pocket. I'm going to put it to use."
Yeah,
move some Vulcan chess pieces.
Do we ever see Vulcan chess again?
No, but I do have a comment on that in the Gornegg section of the show, where I talk about the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections.
Because was 3D chess just too hard to do this with?
I mean, maybe Gene Roddenberry was like, oh, a lot of people bought the IDIC pins. Maybe if I come up with like Vulcan chess pieces, they'll buy those from Lincoln Enterprises.
Being flat would be easier than 3D.
I don't know. I mean, I just pulled that theory out of my ass. That's pure speculation, but yeah, I don't know.
Or Gene. Is it magic?
And we can't ask them, so it's just an eternal mystery. I guess we'll never know why the great bird of the galaxy.
Well, we could draw a pentagram on the floor.
Oh, we're gonna try to do a seance and convene with them.
Because Grant Morrison did that and contacted John Lennon. So he said. So
he also says he went to Alpha Centauri and talked to aliens, but
he did get a Beatles song. You can hear it. It's on YouTube. But who knows?
Good old. Speaking of, I mentioned comic books earlier, but speaking of comic books, Grant Morrison, one of my. I don't know if Grant Morrison is a Trekkie. I don't know if he's watched Star Trek, but if I could show him any episode of Star Trek, I would show him this one.
I'm sure he's seen some episodes of TOS. He has to have, but I don't know if he ever saw TAS.
Yeah. What did y'all think of Sulu's magic spell when he manifests a woman companion? I guess.
Yeah, this was so random to me. I was like, "What is the point of this part?"
It's lonely near the center of the galaxy. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is just
that one. I felt like this was another one of those things.
Oh my God.
I felt like this was another one of those, maybe they dropped something from the plot. Like maybe this made sense in a different version of the plot. And then like they just left it in there because it was already animated or something.
Well, I think they were just showing that like, oh, look, in this universe, if you believe in your power, you can
manifest it.
Yeah, you can make these things appear. Like that's how like matter was created. You can
but odd that it would be like a human woman.
Like, I don't think Filmation had the budget to animate anything they weren't going to use.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could have been written, but they didn't animate stuff they didn't use.
Yeah.
And also before George Takei became a gay icon, but I like to believe my headcanon is that Sulu is bi. He's into chicks and he's into dudes, and that's why you see him, in the Kelvin movies have a husband, and you see him here, I guess, be attracted to this woman. So I don't know. Maybe he's excited when he sees like, oh, this woman can also turn into like this muscular dude, Lucian. So, but Lucian shows up and freaks out that they're doing this magic. I think it's the impression I get is that like this is what leads to the other Megans detecting the presence of the Enterprise.
It's like being loud. They all heard the magic.
Yeah, like they're sensitive to it being used.
They're just sitting in their ship, doing, non-magic was fine, but yeah.
Yeah. Before we move on to what happens next, I just want to point out, I just had a thought about the chess stuff. Aaron in the live audience is commenting on how it is actually like the depiction of the 3D chess from the animated series that he had to draw for the animated series style guide that he did for Paramount. It's hard to make that an actual like real three-dimensional image, draw something that could exist in 3D. So maybe they used Vulcan chess just so it, like you were saying, Joel, so that like it's easier to like the flat surface would be not only like easier to be like merch for Lincoln Enterprises if that was that's not something I seriously think, but who knows, maybe. But also like easier to draw. Yeah,
you don't even see the whole thing, but.
And you're going to have to animate something moving, like one of the chess pieces moving off of it. So maybe that's the reason for Vulcan chess. But there's a cool thing about Vulcan chess that I'll bring up later at the end of the show. Lucian on the bridge. And freaking out that the Megans have found them. And we get like the spooky voice from George Takei. Yeah, I got it right here.
Spooky pilgrim voice, yes.
So the people of Earth would spread their evil to our home. We are ready for human... I don't even know this word. Perfidy? Yeah. Oh, that's like a trickery, right? That's like deception.
That's really old. They're going for
so what the hell, Gene?
kind of words.
Okay, so that's what he's thinking.
Yeah.
So the people of Earth would spread their evil to our home. We are ready for human perfidy this time. This time, it is the humans who shall suffer. The humans and Lucian who shall pay. So this is interesting to me. This is kind of like a, like internalized, maybe not internalized is the right word, but kind of like an experienced trauma. And then like you go on to like do the thing that happened to you to someone else. It's like, oh, these people, like they locked us up in the stockades. They put us on trial. Like we're going to do the same thing to them. It's almost kind of like Baiul and Kelpians.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you hunted us for food. Well, now we're going to hunt you for food kind of thing.
Yeah. I do want to mention that in that scene where they have a lot of the like demon monster mist montage, it's like kind of purple and green, like floating over the heads of the big three. I think that looks so cool and like really trippy and like sinister, but it also kind of reminds me of the animations in Inuyasha where they have like the demon mist and stuff and like the demon groups. So I thought that was really cool. And I wonder if they borrowed from this because it looks very similar and it looks so cool.
Yeah, it's a completely different art style from the rest of their animation.
Yeah. So. I have not seen the show Inuyasha, the anime series, but I am going to be watching that soon with Taylor. We show each other a lot of TV shows and movies, so that's on our list. But what it reminds me of, that imagery, is the 80s / I think it was still on in the early 90s Ghostbusters cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah,
they had some really fun colorful ghost designs, and some of these reminded me of that. But I was obsessed with that show when it was on.
I was too. Yeah.
I would say better than most Ghostbusters movies I've seen.
Yes, for sure.
But let's get into the Salem witch trial stuff. So when the Megans discover the Enterprise, we get more psychedelic stuff. The Enterprise like glows and looks like it splits in two. So I guess these things like they like destroy the Enterprise with their magic, but then like rebuild it by the end, or at least that's kind of like what the visuals indicate. But trippy stuff. And then what I was saying, like, yeah, this episode is just like so bonkers as you're watching it. It's like, oh, we just had like looked like spirits out of real Ghostbusters or Inuyasha, and now all of a sudden we're in Salem, Massachusetts in the old Pilgrim days for some reason.
Yes, and then we get more non-consensual BDSM, and they're all put in stocks.
Yeah,
including Eric's, as Fatheree pointed out earlier in a chat, that he's got 3 little handholds because
yeah, very accommodating. So it really sucks for Eric's. He's got to be thinking like, why am I put on trial with the humans? Like, I'm not from Earth. None of my ancestors lived on Earth. It's like Spock is chosen to represent humans in the trial because he's like not of Earth. But he's like, Spock, you're half human. You're way more of Earth than Eric's. I don't think Eric's had like the same lawyering skills that Spock has, though. So he just knows how to like navigate and drive ships and stuff like that.
He looks so done in this episode. He's like, I don't even get any dialogue. I'm just gonna like sit here long faced. He's like, eventually we'll get out of this. Like, this crap happens on the Enterprise every day.
Yeah, Starfleet is weird.
Yeah, a support group for aliens in Starfleet, and they just sit around on folding chairs and be like, yeah, have you been put on trial with humanity this week? It's like, I'm not even part of that. Oh, well.
It's also weird to me that Kirk is like, oh, this is like the 1600s or 1700s, and Spock is like, oh, it's actually 1691, if I recall the historical records correctly.
He says approximately, and I'm like, you can't say approximately 1691. Like, that's so
Spock
specific.
Spock can.
It kind of reminds me, we were talking about in Spock's brain, whenever they had the 3 different time, like, the time slots, and he was like, approximately, you were...
Approximately, what is approximately?
Looks like
I don't know why the pentagram is in this scene, other than it looks really cool, but I don't know what the Megans put it there for.
Yeah, it looks like we lost Taylor, but hopefully we get that figured out. Okay, she's back now. Okay, we lost you for a second.
Was that just me that fell out?
Yeah, but we're good. We're good.
It was. I tried to talk over it, but
I was like mid-sentence, so I don't know if I got it all out.
The end probably fell off, but it seemed to make sense.
Approximately.
Okay, I was saying that it reminds me of that Spock's brain conversation where they have the 3 different time periods, and then Kirk is like, oh yeah, approximately 1490 something or whatever, the Stone Age time or whatever it was. I can't remember now, but it was like so specific, and they were just trying to approximate.
Oh yeah, it was Kirk talking about like what year the different classifications of the planets in Spock's brain are. Yeah. We also meet Asmodeus here when they're locked up in Salem. Yes. So he is the specialist of the ethics of magic, and therefore he's appointed to be the prosecutor in this trial, humanity's trial. So, something that Trelane did in the Squire of Gothos, put Kirk on trial for humanity. Something that Q will do in Encounter at Farpoint, put Picard on trial. As we eventually learn, that trial never ends. But Asmodeus, he calls the crew. He says that they are representatives of the vilest species in all the universe, treacherous humanity. So they really don't like humans.
Yeah, don't hold back there. Jeez, yeah.
But this is what I think is like the Star Trek part of the episode, is his view of humans is that they are very like they're the demons, they're the devil. He even says like hellish earth at one point, which that's kind of cool that they were able to get that on Saturday morning. But yeah, hellish Earth. He said, we left your hellish Earth and came back to Megas-tu. But
Yes.
he's doing the like the prejudice, as in like very literal prejudice, like prejudging. He has prejudged these people the same way that, like, oh, when you see a guy who looks like the classical depiction of the devil, and there's like that instinct to prejudge him until you hear him out and hear his story. So it is a little, as they would say on mission logs, when something was kind of obvious or heavy-handed, bonk bonk on the head, reference to Miri. But it is bonk bonk on the head. But sometimes Star Trek is bonk bonk on the head.
Yeah, parts of it have to be.
It is pretty dark. Pretty dark, though, that humanity is the reason that the Megans never ever explored or sought companionship again. Like, that's pretty dark. Like, they were like, yeah, y'all ruined space travel for us. We were done.
It also speaks to that kind of it's kind of a popular thing now, unfortunately. But that desire for that isolationism, or that very like xenophobic instinct to be like, no, I only care about like my people, my society. I just want to build up walls around us to keep us safe. That was very much, that was kind of like first term Trump. That was his thing. Was like, no, we're gonna build a wall that like it never got built. Now we've unfortunately gotten worse, where it's talking about like, oh, we're just gonna go take over the nearby countries with Panama and Canada and Mexico and Greenland. But yeah, a lot of humanity still needs to do a lot of evolving in our modern day. But here, like this idea of like, yeah, we're just going to be isolationists, and how Lucian, I did it again, how Lucian rejects that, and when Asmodeus is talking about that. We need to be safe and secure and stay on Megas-tu, and Lucian is saying like, no, that's like the way of fear and loneliness, is what he calls it.
I think Asmodeus needs some friends. It's true. He's been stuck alone, and he's lashing out, and I understand he has trauma.
I think Lucian being the generalist, I think that like aids him in, his companionship with humanity, because there's more that he can like as a generalist, and he can explore different things. Like, he's not stuck in one thing that he's really good at or whatever, one thing he's super interested in. So he kind of has a little more freedom naturally as a generalist. And so maybe that just like, increases his love for humanity, in community. And maybe the other specialists like don't feel that need for like companionship as much. I mean, that's something that could be taken into account.
Yeah, if you were stuck with Asmodeus all the time, yeah, I can see why you'd want to find some humanity and hang out with them for a while.
We don't know exactly how many centuries the Megans were present on Earth, but it's interesting to me that when they were like, okay, we're just going to go into hiding. We're getting used and abused by these humans. As soon as they find out we can do magic, they want us to serve them, and when we refuse, they call us devils or warlocks or evil sorcerers. So we're just gonna go find a new life for ourselves with these pilgrims in Massachusetts. It's like, why did they decide Salem of all places to relocate to? But
or maybe they heard that the Organians like to do stuff like that, and that they're just not as good at it as they are. I don't know.
But when they're discovered there, and when like they're being burnt at the stake, so they decide to return back to Megas-tu. Asmodeus says that in order, I guess, to like draw up enough power to do that, they had to gather in mass and surround themselves in Megan lore and focus on like their Megan identity enough that they would be able to return home. I wish I could have seen that. Would that have been just like, what would that have looked like? Like this, I don't know, this big crazy like pagan festival in the 1600s, but outside of Salem.
That's something I wish we had gotten in this episode. Instead of them being like dressed like pilgrims, like to see more flashbacks to what maybe could have been happening. Instead of them just talking about it, it would have been fun animation to see.
Like them in the when they have like that robed form before they left Megas-tu to explore the cosmos. If they were having like some like, I don't know, like some big bonfire, just like with weird glyphs or pentagrams or whatever, like carved on trees or something like that. Yeah, that would have been some cool stuff. Very like druid like. Like, I know that's old England, not New England, but yeah, they could have done like some like druid type stuff. By the way, that's like another thing, like the whole like Salem witch trials, and like there's a metal band I like called Witchfinder. They used to have like the Witchfinder generals who would like go like they were charged with like finding people who might be a possible witch and then dealing with them. But yeah, that's another kind of like metal thing to focus on.
Yeah, I have a Witch Haven shirt on. There's a lot of witch metal bands. So.
Yeah, a lot of them. But we get this trial. We get like another courtroom episode again. Very Star Trek. A lot of traditional Star Trek stuff here. But Spock is chosen to represent humans, and the first witness he calls to the stand is Lucien himself. So I really like this part when Spock asked Lucien, "Why do you not fear the humans like all these other Megans?" And then I love Lucien's outlook on humanity. He says, "They're like me, with questions to be answered, with minds that range outward, boundless. Every Megan is always alone in his sphere of knowledge. Humans are always together. They share." I like that idea of like, oh, he wants to be an explorer. Lucien, I don't know if he's like disciplined enough to be in Starfleet, but he's very much like has like that same desire to go out and explore and learn and meet people. Maybe, I don't know. He might be like too chaotic to be like a diplomat or an ambassador. I don't know if he belongs in like the diplomatic corps either. But it's something that I think a lot of Star Trek characters would relate to, like that desire to seek out new life, to celebrate those, what Gene Roddenberry talked about, when you meet people that are different than you and not only accept their differences, but celebrate the fact that they are different than you. I think that's something that like a lot of us, especially this day and age, need to do, need to really try to like, keep in mind. But,
what Lucy needs to do is go to Starfleet Academy. And then he can learn all this stuff and party with all the students. Maybe he'll be a surprise in the Starfleet Academy. I doubt it.
But yeah, I like that idea of like the Megans. I guess they're all like these very, very knowledgeable, very like informed, almost like scholarly. They all have like their own like hyper focus, their own hyper fixation. These specialists, and he says like, no, I want us to like mingle and interact, and he's very extroverted. He wants to be social.
Yeah. So, no one else there is.
Yeah, everyone else just wants to like stay in like their own little bubble, their own little. I get that instinct too. Like I just want to stay in my astrometrics room, as I was saying, we call it, and just
they don't mind
focus on Star Trek
bubble.
all day. But
if you get a love filter, you can have a bubble of 2. But I think that's their limit.
Yeah, is that how that works? The Megan relationships,
or maybe they don't seem like they have big. Maybe there's some big poly Megans, but they don't show them.
That might fit though. Well, I don't know. Like I could see that with Lucien. He seems like a guy who'd be down with having like multiple romantic partners. I don't know. The rest of them are kind of prudish. Like Asmodeus literally appears in the form of a pilgrim, so it doesn't get more Puritan than that. But the next witness is Captain Kirk, and he is asked if humans have changed since the times of Old Salem, and Kirk says, just let the record speak for itself. Here's all of our historical data from the Enterprise. He also mentions the Prime Directive. Like, if we hadn't evolved, would we have the Prime Directive? So interesting that Gene Roddenberry wanted that line
of
in
all
there.
the things. Yeah. Like,
I think that it's actually better that his first thing that he says is, "Oh, well, we're trying. I like to think that we're better." Like he doesn't say, "Yes, humanity is better." He doesn't say, "No, humanity is awful." Like he's like, "We're working on it."
Like he gives a thoughtful, reflective answer. He's not just saying like, what's going to sound good. He sincerely tries to answer the question.
Right. And then he gives them like proof. He's like, you can read my logs. Here are the records.
It's also a very Roddenberry thing to say that like, humankind is a work in progress. Like I remember in interviews with Gene Roddenberry, he would talk about how like, oh yeah, in today's world in the real life, as a species, we're just like babies. We're just toddlers trying to learn how to walk, basically. And in Star Trek, it's further in the future where we've evolved and we're more of like an adolescent, kind of like learning how to act like a grown up, as we go out into space and start meeting other peoples from other worlds. So that was Roddenberry's outlook. It sounds like even here in 1973.
Yep.
What did y'all think when the historical records are presented and it's a bunch of film reels and punch cards? I saw Jill in the live audience laughing at that, but
It's
that's kind of
beautiful.
weird.
It seems weird now, but and it seems weird for the 23rd century, but it was the thing from the era when this was made,
Well,
and
it's also
and you can't really remove art from when it was made, and so it's
also
hilarious. I love it.
funny because if you think about like the Megans are the ones like manifesting what the records look like. Like,
But the records
and they were
from the Enterprise,
pilgrims. If they were pilgrims,
Yeah.
so like that didn't exist when they were pilgrims, and then it also is not being used like in the 23rd century. So it's like they met in the middle somehow. They're
Yeah,
like,
I
oh,
mean,
these things.
they're only off by about 300 years. It sounds like these people have lived for thousands, perhaps like millions. I don't know, maybe even billions a year. So if you're only off by like 300 years, not that big of a deal, all right?
Yeah, and who knows how time, flows for them in their realm. I mean, it might have been a million years to us in the 600 years in the Megan's dimension, or whatever it is. So.
But Asmodeus says that, like, okay, well, your historical records do indicate that y'all might be a bit more trustworthy now, and so we don't have to fear you. We've exposed ourselves to you. You've learned that we exist, but we're not worried about you. Instead, we're just going to punish Lucian by putting him in isolation. It's kind of like the Phantom Zone of Krypton. They're gonna lock him up all alone forever. But I this is another thing I love in the episode.
You want too. I mean, another thing, yeah.
But I love Kirk immediately like standing up for him, like no, like that guy can't survive like that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, he's not gonna last in isolation. That's like death for a creature like him. So we get the cool magic battle between Kirk and Asmodeus. So it's very like Dragon Ball Z. Like Asmodeus like shoots an energy ball out of his hand at Kirk. That's something straight out of Dragon Ball Z, honestly. So speaking of aliens in Star Trek that appear as gods, but someone call Ensign Ollie from Lower Decks, granddaughter of Zeus. There's other people who have some in Star Trek who have some Dragon Ball Z type moves, shooting energy beams out of their hands and whatnot. But what do y'all think of the wizard battle between Kirk and Asmodeus?
It's fun. It kind of looks like it's like a triple layer life belt thing around Kirk. And then he like gets this lightning too, and then
rainbow shield around him. Yeah. There's lightning shooting out. There's Asmodeus attacks Kirk with fire, and then Kirk summons like rain clouds to put it out. And it gets real weird real fast. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, he traps the pilgrim in thorns. I'm not sure if that's another biblical allusion to the crown of thorns, but at this point, it may as well be. I don't know.
It makes me think. Isn't that in Sleeping Beauty? Isn't there evil magic
There's
thorns
a lot of
in that?
Thorns in mythology, I think.
When Kirk is getting hit by like a wind blast from Asmodeus, he's on like this rainbow background. Almost kind of like pride flag looking, very, very colorful.
It's kind of more watercolory too than the rest of the animation. Which they do a lot of sort of watercolory looking stuff.
Yeah, in the backgrounds,
stuff.
yeah.
So it definitely looks different, which I liked. It was, or as Geek Filter in the audience is pointing out, it looks like the fruit stripe gum wrapper.
Yeah. But the trial is over. It turns out that the actual trial was Asmodeus just wanted to see if humans had truly changed, if they would show compassion to Lucian and stand up for not just compassion, but like be like a proactive ally who's gonna like stand up for him. So yeah, it's like, oh, if the humans have learned to forgive this guy who looks like the evil creature and all of their myths and religions and stuff, if they're able to stand up for him and defend his rights, then I guess they really have changed. The historical records aren't faked; they can be trusted. You have any other thoughts on the trial or its conclusion?
I mean, they do get to toast the conclusion with a little stein of beer.
Yeah, so it's obviously like, I mean, like if you're holding a container that looks like a beer stein and you're saying, oh, we are doing a toast. This is a lovely human tradition of a toast. Okay, that is clearly meant to be like they're consuming alcoholic beverages. So this episode got away with so much on Saturday morning TV. The Prodigy writers said they weren't even able to mention Romulan bubbly on Star Trek Prodigy.
Wow.
But here we can have like a toast with beer steins in the 70s.
Yeah, that was a Nickelodeon rule or something. I think so.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I love the image of Lucian with one of the beer steins. That used to be my profile picture on some social media. I used to use that.
It's a classic.
But I can relate to Lucian. Like I love to rollick, so I sometimes if I stay in my sphere of knowledge like a Megan for too long, I get lonely. I need to go find people to rollick with.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I need a Lucian, but he's not always here. Oh well.
And the Enterprise now allowed to leave Megas-tu. I assume that there's like some magic whirlwind stuff to get them, back where they were, because we're saying like we don't think they're actually in this. They don't actually drive the Enterprise to the center of the galaxy in the opening of this episode. So
I assume the Megans help push them out.
Yeah,
just like they were sucked in. And if they try really hard, they can get them home fast.
Just a smoother ride on the way out.
Yeah.
But we get that final conversation between McCoy and Kirk and Spock. McCoy explains like, well, no more magic for us. I guess they had to say like, okay, we can't like move chess pieces anymore. We can only do that at Megas-tu. We're back to the normal rules of physics, the normal laws of physics in the universe. But McCoy asks Kirk if he thinks was Lucian really the demon some men called Lucifer? And Kirk asked, does it really matter, Bones? And then Spock ends the episode with the line, it just might, Captain. If he was, this would be the second time Lucifer was cast out, and, thanks to you, the first time he was saved.
Dun, dun, dun. He's
true. So I guess true. Spock is under the assumption that Asmodeus was actually going to imprison Lucian. Like the stakes are like that high to determine if humans, now that they know the location of Megas-tu, can they be trusted with it? The stakes are so high that Asmodeus was actually going to permanently imprison Lucian if Kirk didn't step up and defend him. But I guess good thing he did, because that would have sucked for Lucian. But
it would be a sad Lucian.
Just a fun way to end the episode too. It's like, oh, if God couldn't save the devil, but Kirk could. Like, I don't know. I can see that being like very like Gene Roddenberry of like, oh yeah, it's man triumphing over God. That was an important theme for Gene.
Yeah, yes. And it's rounding out the like apple scene. You kind of like tie it back in towards that.
To the Garden of Eden. Yeah.
Humanity was given knowledge, and they used it to save Lucifer. Look at that.
Full circle.
Wee, for sure.
Well, you have any final thoughts on the episode?
Well, I think we forgot to mention too that, as Art in the chat pointed out, that Ed Bishop, who was in 2001 and was the lead in the Anderson TV show UFO, voiced Asmodeus.
Right.
He was the guest star.
They actually had like a guest star in instead of having
just James do both.
Yeah. It wasn't Jimmy. It wasn't Lou. It wasn't George. It was they got someone else.
Yes, indeed. Yes, I really like UFO. I think it's a great show.
Well, if that's all we got, I'm going to go ahead and go into the Gorn Egg section of the show, where I like to point out the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections. Just the one I mentioned at the beginning, the center of the galaxy thing. We also go to the center of the galaxy in Star Trek V, where instead of meeting the devil, Cybok meets God, or the god of Shakari, or the entity that claims to be God. However, like I was mentioning, I think we can make these two stories coexist. We just have to accept that the Great Barrier and the creation point that led to Megas-tu, they're both near the center of the galaxy, not like exactly center. No ships make it through the Great Barrier that was around Shakari in Star Trek V. No probe has ever returned. Cybok's whole thing was like, oh, I think the danger is an illusion. We can go through there, but obviously in the Magicks of Megas-tu, they're not planning on going there. They're going to go check out the creation point, which is also in that what Sulu was calling the Galactic Center, which we don't know exactly if that's how big or small of an area that is. So I don't think it's too hard to make these stories coexist. That doesn't explain how the Enterprise, I guess, gets in that neighborhood so easily, but apparently it does. Like, it's on screen, it is canon.
It's good no one mentioned to Cybok, though, about the Megans as they were on their way to the other place.
Well, you got to think about that. I actually
maybe
rewatched.
He would have, because he was on his side. But
I rewatched Star Trek V earlier with this episode especially on my mind, and I was just kind of thinking, okay, if I do want to headcanon how all these things coexist, it would make sense that Kirk is like, yeah, this guy Cybok is out of control. I can't let him get over to Megas-tu and go like hang out with Lucian.
Or Lucian could have just sidetracked him with beer and apples for forever.
I think that they actually would get along. I wish that Cybok found Lucian instead of the entity that he encountered.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe that creature is also of Megas-tu. Maybe the other Megans imprisoned him for being a jerk.
Possibly. He is kind of jerky. That could have been Lucian's fate, to be just as jerky. Yeah.
But also in Star Trek V, when they are approaching that galactic barrier, or not the Great Barrier, not the galactic barrier. That's the one on the outside of the galaxy, not in the middle.
I always assumed it's like a donut. It's just one barrier that goes around.
It's all part of the same barrier.
That's just me, but
when the Enterprise is approaching that stuff in Star Trek V, it does go through like a very turbulent part of space with like lightning and weird colors and stuff. So not that different from what the Enterprise had to travel through to get to the creation point in this episode. So could be the same neighborhood. I thought this was interesting when Lucian appears and makes their life support systems work with the magic that he casts. He says the word Radamanthus in this wonderful James Doohan delivery. But Radamanthus, I recently discovered, is a Greek mythological demigod and king. He is the son of Zeus. Also, speaking of anime, we mentioned Inuyasha earlier. I haven't watched the Netflix show Blood of Zeus, but it's like a Greek mythology anime. My friend watches it. He says it's really good. But I guess Radamanthus is a character in that show, so... This episode was like coming up with so much material for Japanese animated shows to pull from. We're talking about like, oh, this is like Dragon Ball Z. This is like Inuyasha. This is like Blood of Zeus. So, the Vulcan chess that we mentioned earlier, it's only the scene in this episode where we see like actual like Vulcan chess pieces on a Vulcan chess board. However, in the Star Trek Voyager episode Alter Ego, Harry Kim refers to Calto as Vulcan chess. But then Tuvok corrects him and says, Calto is to chess, as chess is to tic-tac-toe. So I guess there's actually like another, maybe like Vulcan chess is just like a human chessboard, but made with like Vulcan designed pieces on it. I don't know. Or maybe there actually is like a game called Vulcan Chess that is totally different from Calto, and just Harry Hill didn't know about that. Like, any of that stuff works, but this is kind of like the Radamanthus thing, but Asmodeus, the name of our prosecutor here, Asmodeus is also the name of the king of demons in the Legend of Solomon in some Christianity and Judaism and I guess Islam. All mention this Asmodeus figure. And this is interesting that it's my understanding that the original Larry Brody script didn't use the name Asmodeus. He's only referred to as Megan Prosecutor. That's based on the look of New England Puritan Cotton Mather.
Yeah.
But he only called that guy the Megan Prosecutor. So it appears to be Gene Roddenberry who came up with the name Asmodeus. That's interesting to me because also in the 70s, Gene Roddenberry had the demon Asmodeus in his 1977 failed pilot for what would have been a TV show called Spectre, which
yes,
I think was...
I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Do you know about that? Have you ever seen that or anything?
A couple times. It was so it's a pilot. It's like a 2-hour movie. Well, it would have been 2 hours on TV, so it's like 90 minutes or something. Majel has a little part in it. It's sort of like an occult investigator looking for stuff. Robert Culp was the lead, and then John Hurt is in it. So there's some really good actors. It's kind of a fun movie.
Yeah, that's
as a series, it would have been kind of fun. It's kind of in that Hellboyish occult looking for, stuff and but yes, Asmodeus is the big bad in that. And I was just like, Roddenberry Gene really likes Asmodeus, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I really want to watch that now.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, we might have to do a viewing of that in the Tex-Trek Discord at some point. So wherever you are watching or listening to this, there is a link to the Tex-Trek Discord server in the description. So please join, and maybe we'll watch that Roddenberry failed pilot Spectre. But it was going to be like a US and UK production, I think.
It was definitely shot in the UK. All the extras are English, it seems.
And it was co-written by Samuel A. Peebles, who is famous to Trekkies for writing both Where No Man Has Gone Before, kind of the first episode of the original series, unless you're going to count The Cage, but the first Kirk Spock episode of Star Trek, written by him. And he also wrote the first episode of the animated series, Beyond the Farthest Star. So,
yes.
But yeah, we should watch that in Discord at some point. Join the Discord server. And also these episodes that we do, these Back-Trekking Retrospectives for, we actually watch these collectively on Thursday nights before we go live and stream and talk about them on Fridays. So come watch some fun stuff with us in Discord.
Were we thinking about moving them to 6 p.m.?
Yeah, we're probably gonna start doing those at 6 p.m. Central going forward, but we'll let folks know the times in Discord. So as long as you're in the server, you'll see the notifications and be up to date on what we're doing. And the last thing I have in the Gorn eggs, I thought this was an interesting piece of trivia, but this is the only episode of the animated series to show Earth.
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
Like the original series never goes to Earth unless it's like time travel, but they never show 23rd century Earth.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the same thing. Like we don't see 23rd century Earth. We see like a flashback to Earth, like when the Megans were there. But yeah, that seems really surprising. If I would have been asked this a few days ago, I don't know if I would have been able to get this trivia question right. Like, what is the only episode of the animated series to depict Earth? So there you go. It's the Magicks of Megas-tu. I think that'd be a good trivia question.
Yeah.
Very obscure.
That's all I got on Gorn Eggs, but I had a blast talking about this episode. I would love to hear what folks out there think about it. Y'all just heard me and Joel and Miss Taylor talk about this for over an hour, so you know what we think. Tell us what you think. Leave us a comment. Join that Discord server and tell us there what you think about the Magicks of Megas-tu, or leave a comment on YouTube or on Spotify. And we might share whatever you tell us in future content. Last week, we did a Back-Trekking Retrospective on the TNG episode, Heart of Glory, the first Klingon episode of The Next Generation, and kind of the first time we ever explore those 24th century Klingons other than Worf. We received some subspace transmissions on that episode. So I thought this was really cool. On Blue Sky, Vernon Smith, who is actually a comic book artist who's done some work for IDW, publishes the current Star Trek comics. But Vernon Smith on Blue Sky said about Heart of Glory, "The thing I remember the most, even from way back in 7th grade when I first saw this, was when they called the homeworld Kling. As far as I know, they never did that again." And yeah, in the episode, the Klingon chorus calls the Klingon homeworld Kling, which I think is super interesting. I remember reading this back in the 90s in the Star Trek Encyclopedia by Mike and Denise Okuda. But their quote from the encyclopedia about Kling is actually up on Memory Alpha. But Mike and Denise wrote, "While in the engine room, Chorus says, 'I would rather die here than let the traitors of Kling pick the meat from my bones.' At the time the episode was written, Kling was intended as the name of the Klingon homeworld. Once the episode was filmed, it was realized that the name sounded pretty silly, so later scripts simply referred to the homeworld. And we now assume that Kling is a city or district. The planet was renamed Kronos in Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country." But yeah, that we didn't mention that last week, but yeah, it is weird that Chorus calls the homeworld Kling, and I agree. I do think that Kronos is a better name.
Well, they could have more than one name. We have Earth, Terra, depends what universe you're in. I know.
Sol 3.
Yeah.
One thing that me and Dave talked about last week on the show, though, was how Patrick Stewart mispronounces the name Talarian as Tyrellian, and I was talking about how there's so many T aliens in Berman era Star Trek. We got a comment on YouTube from one of our regulars, Opinions No One Cares About. He says, "There are Takarians and false prophets, Talarians and suddenly human, and Temerians and Darmok. I'm not sure if that's clever or someone saying we can change one consonant and they'll never know." So yeah, the Berman era writers really loved those Takarian, Talarian, Temerian. Yeah, they liked that stuff. And I got a direct message from one of our regular podcast listeners, MZ Rad, who says, "Hello, have you considered doing an episode of your podcast that considers tearjerkers? DS9's The Visitor, obviously, but I cry at the end of Voyager's One Small Step every time. Also, the death of hologram Janeway in Season 1, Episode 20. They're talking about Star Trek Prodigy, obviously. But they say, that always makes me cry too. I love feeling feelings, as Tilly would say. Just a thought from an asynchronous listener." So, MZ Rad on Blue Sky, I think those are some really great candidates. We've actually already talked about a couple of those being future Back-Trekking Retrospectives. So I don't know if you were asking, like, we should just do like a show on like tearjerkers in general, but those are fun episodes to focus on individually, I think. So I do want to encourage people, if there are episodes of Trek that you want us to do a Back-Trekking Retrospective on, let us know. But I am happy to announce the episode we have planned for next week with Aaron. But it's going to be an episode of Star Trek Voyager. We haven't done a Back-Trekking Retrospective on Voyager yet, so it is time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a episode that I know a lot of people really love. Wait, is it Wink of an Eye or Blink of an Eye? Blink of an Eye. Blink of an Eye is TOS.
They're so hard, yeah.
But
they rhyme too. It's even worse than normal.
Blink of an Eye. So it's the episode with the skyship Voyager hanging over the planet that they also kind of did this in Lower Decks recently, but where the planet moves at a faster time. So we see that civilization go from cavemen to space travel. And that episode has like a lot of heart. It's a really cool exploration of a neat sci-fi concept. And I think folks are gonna enjoy hearing us talk about that, and I'm really excited to talk to that with Aaron because I know he's a big fan of Star Trek Voyager. So, and people always go to him. People always like ask Aaron like, "Oh, come talk like animated series with us." But you know what's like, how come people never ask him to talk Voyager? So it's like, you know what, Dan, I'm gonna ask him to talk Voyager.
To talk about.
But yeah, but we're gonna do more animated series in the future. If people like this, we can definitely.
I hope so.
Some less demonic episodes in the future, but there's a lot in the animated series I'd love to talk about. There's a lot of Voyager I want to talk about other than Blink of an Eye. So I think people should suggest any specific episodes you'd like us to get to quickly. I know when we get close to Strange New Worlds, we're going to try to do some episodes that might kind of tie into Strange New World Season 3, so be on the lookout for that. But otherwise, we still don't know when we're getting Strange New World Season 3, so we might be doing a lot more of these in the coming months, but I'm looking forward to eventually talking about Strange New World Season 3. I'm looking forward to eventually talking about Starfleet Academy. Who knows, we might get a theatrical Star Trek movie at some point. Looking forward to talking about that if/when that happens. Maybe more made for streaming movies. Whatever happens after the Skydance merger finalizes in a few days. Or a few months. Not a few days. But whenever that finalizes in a few months. But let us know what content you're liking and what you want to see from us. Joel, Miss Taylor, any last minute thoughts you want to say before we sign off?
I'll just raise my non-flagon and cheers to the audience. Thanks for coming on this voyage to the center of the galaxy with us.
Yeah, ditto on that.
Yeah, y'all are a fun crowd to rollick with, and I'm looking forward to rollicking with y'all more next week when we have Aaron on talking about Voyager's Blink of an Eye. So until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Subscribe to YouTube to watch the Tex-Trek podcast live or listen to us later on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Stephen Fatheree on socials at TXTrek. Thank you and take care.